It was a bright and sunny afternoon in the middle of the city, the kind of day when the streets seemed to hum with life, and the air carried the faint smell of food from nearby cafes and street vendors. Cars moved steadily along the road, horns occasionally honking as impatient drivers tried to get ahead, and the sidewalks were crowded with people hurrying to finish errands, meet friends, or just enjoy the warmth of the day. Among them was Malik, a young black teen of 17, walking slowly on the sidewalk, headphones in his ears, listening to his favorite music. His backpack hung loosely over one shoulder, and his sneakers made a soft tapping sound against the pavement as he walked. He was lost in his own world, thinking about school, homework, and the small worries that occupied a teenager's mind. Malik liked these walks home because they gave him a moment of peace after a long day at school. He usually watched the people around him, noticing small details that most people missed, the way an old man adjusted his hat before crossing the street, the laughter of children playing near a fountain, or a street artist drawing colorful sketches on the sidewalk. He enjoyed observing life quietly, never imagining that today, his quiet walk was about to take an unexpected turn. As he turned a corner near a busy intersection, Malik noticed a woman trying to cross the street. She was in a wheelchair and had a large bag balanced on her lap. Her movements were careful but slow, as if each push of the wheels required a lot of effort. The traffic light was green, and cars were zooming by, some slowing down as they saw her struggling. Malik could see the strain in her expression, the slight furrow in her brow, the tightness of her jaw, the focus in her eyes as she tried to navigate through the chaos. He immediately felt a pang of concern. Without thinking, he took out his headphones and jogged a few steps toward her. "Excuse me, ma'am. Do you need some help?" he called out, his voice friendly but firm enough to make her notice him. The woman looked up, startled for a moment, but then she nodded slowly. "Yes, please," she said, her voice soft and tired. Malik could see that she was not just physically struggling but also carrying an invisible weight, a hint of worry or fatigue in her eyes. He moved closer, carefully taking hold of the bag and positioning himself beside her wheelchair. He wasn't sure what to do at first, but he instinctively guided her along the sidewalk, making sure she stayed safe from the speeding cars and uneven pavement. As they moved together, Malik noticed little things about her, how her hands gripped the wheels, how her eyes scanned the road for danger, and the slight hesitation in her movements, as if every push required planning and effort. He felt a surge of empathy. It wasn't just about helping her cross the street, it was about seeing her struggle, recognizing her courage, and wanting to make her journey easier, even if just for a few moments. He realized that helping someone wasn't always easy, and sometimes it required more than just physical effort, it required patience, attention, and respect. The street around them continued to bustle with life. People walked past without noticing, cars continued their steady hum, and the city seemed indifferent to the small act of kindness unfolding in its midst. Yet for Malik and the woman in the wheelchair, the world had momentarily slowed down. Every step, every careful push, felt significant. Malik noticed how her eyes softened when she realized someone genuinely cared. She smiled faintly, and Malik returned the smile, feeling a quiet satisfaction that went beyond words. As they reached the other side of the street, Malik carefully helped her maneuver onto a smoother section of the sidewalk. He took a step back, giving her space, and asked, "Are you okay now?" "Yes, thank you," she said again, her voice filled with a mix of gratitude and relief. Malik nodded, feeling a strange sense of fulfillment. He had only just met this woman, yet in these few minutes, they had shared something meaningful, a moment of connection, human kindness, and mutual respect. Little did Malik know, this brief encounter was just the beginning. There was something about the woman that felt familiar, though he couldn't quite place it. Something in her expression, the way she held herself, made him pause for a second longer than usual. But he dismissed the thought, assuming it was just a coincidence, and continued walking, unaware that this small act of kindness would soon lead to an experience that would change both of their lives. In that moment, the city around him seemed alive but also quiet, like it had recognized the small miracle of human connection. Malik felt a sense of purpose, not fully understanding it yet, but sensing that helping someone in need, even in the smallest way, could ripple far beyond a single afternoon. He kept walking, ready to continue his day, but the memory of the woman in the wheelchair lingered in his mind, planting the seeds for something unforgettable. Malik had barely taken a few steps away when he noticed that the woman's wheelchair seemed to be stuck on a small crack in the sidewalk. She was trying to push it forward, but the wheel kept catching, and her bag, balanced precariously on her lap, threatened to tumble. Without a second thought, Malik ran back toward her, his sneakers pounding lightly against the concrete. The music that had filled his ears only minutes ago was forgotten, replaced entirely by the urgency of the moment. "Here, let me help you with that," he called, his voice a little louder this time, cutting through the noise of passing cars and chattering pedestrians. The woman looked up, her face a mixture of relief and surprise. She hadn't expected anyone to notice, let alone offer help so willingly. Malik bent down and steadied the wheelchair, his hands gripping the frame gently but firmly. "Try pushing now," he suggested, and together they managed to free the wheel from the crack. The woman exhaled, a small laugh escaping her lips. "Thank you. I don't know what I would have done," she said, her tone soft but filled with genuine gratitude. Malik felt a warmth in his chest that he had never really noticed before, a mixture of pride and empathy that went beyond the usual satisfaction of helping someone. It was a small act, but in that moment, it felt enormous. He adjusted the bag on her lap so it wouldn't slip, making sure she wouldn't have to struggle any longer. As they moved forward slowly, Malik noticed that the street was even busier than he had first thought. Cars zoomed by, drivers honking impatiently, and people jostled past on the sidewalk without giving them a second glance. Yet, amid all the chaos, Malik felt a quiet focus, a sort of tunnel vision where nothing else mattered except helping this woman get to safety. He asked politely, "Do you need me to push the wheelchair, or are you okay doing it yourself?" "Oh, if it's not too much trouble, could you help me?" she asked, hesitating for a moment as if unsure whether to accept the help. Malik smiled and nodded. "Of course. Don't worry about it at all," he replied. He positioned himself behind the wheelchair, gripping the handles firmly. As he pushed, he noticed how heavy it actually was, but he didn't mind. It was nothing compared to the effort it must have taken the woman to maneuver it alone every day. Malik began to pay attention to small details he might have ignored before, the rhythm of the wheels turning, the way the woman adjusted her hands with each push, and the careful way she balanced her bag. It was clear to him now that her life required a kind of strength and determination that most people never even think about. Halfway down the block, Malik noticed the woman's gaze lingering on him. She didn't speak, but there was something in her eyes, a quiet curiosity, a flicker of recognition that he didn't quite understand. Malik kept his focus on the path ahead, but he couldn't shake the feeling that this moment was unusual, even special. They reached a small park at the corner, where the pavement was smoother and the traffic less intense. Malik slowed the wheelchair, making sure it glided safely along the path. He couldn't help but smile at the woman's expression, a mix of relief and appreciation, tinged with a curiosity he couldn't place. "You're very kind," she said softly, her voice carrying a gentle sincerity that made Malik pause for a moment. Not many people would stop to help someone they don't even know. Malik shrugged modestly. "I just saw you struggling, and I wanted to help." "It's nothing special," he said, though inside, he felt that it actually was special. The act itself, simple as it seemed, had already created a small connection between them, a bridge that wasn't there just a few minutes ago. For a brief moment, the city around them seemed to fade into the background. Cars honked, people hurried by, and the sun shone brightly overhead, but all of it felt distant. Malik and the woman were caught in their own little bubble, a momentary pause in the chaos of life where kindness and human connection took center stage. As they approached a safer spot on the sidewalk, Malik helped the woman adjust her bag one last time, making sure it wouldn't slip off. He stepped back slightly, giving her space, and said, "You're all set now. Is there anywhere I can help you get to?" The woman looked at him for a long moment, her eyes thoughtful. There was something familiar in the way he moved, the way he spoke, the way he had helped her without hesitation. She didn't speak right away, but Malik could sense that this was not just a random encounter. Something about it felt different, significant, almost like fate. And in that instant, Malik didn't know it yet, but this small, simple act of kindness would lead to an experience that neither of them would ever forget. Once Malik had guided the woman safely to a smoother section of the sidewalk, he took a small step back, giving her space to catch her breath. The traffic noise faded into the background as the two of them paused, each taking a moment to adjust. The woman's hands rested lightly on the wheels of her chair, and her breathing slowly returned to normal. Malik could see the faint smile tugging at the corners of her lips, a mix of relief and quiet gratitude. "Thank you again," she said softly, her voice warm but with a hint of weariness, as though the simple act of being helped had eased a much larger burden. Malik shrugged modestly, trying to brush off the praise. "It's no problem at all. I'm glad I could help," he said, his tone casual but genuine. They exchanged a brief glance, the kind that carries unspoken understanding. Malik noticed small details about her, the slight tremor in her hands, the way her eyes scanned the street even after they had stopped, and the careful positioning of her bag. She seemed cautious, aware of her surroundings, but there was also a softness in her gaze, a quiet trust that had begun to form in just a few minutes. "You're very kind," she said again, this time more thoughtfully. "Not everyone would stop like that, especially in a place as busy as this." Malik smiled, a little embarrassed but pleased. "I guess I just thought, if I were in your place, I'd hope someone would help me," he replied. For a moment, there was a gentle silence. The city continued to buzz around them, horns honking, people walking past, snippets of conversation drifting through the air, but within that small space, it felt like time had slowed. Malik could feel that this encounter was different from the usual brief moments of passing strangers. There was something in her presence that demanded attention, something familiar that he couldn't yet place. "Do you live around here?" Malik asked, trying to make casual conversation while keeping the mood light. The woman nodded. "Yes, just a few blocks from here. I come this way often, but sometimes it's tricky navigating the streets," she admitted. There was a pause, then she added, "It's rare to meet someone willing to lend a hand without asking for anything in return." Malik shrugged, feeling a quiet pride swell inside him. "I guess it's just the right thing to do," he said. "I've helped people before, not always big things, but small stuff like this." The woman's eyes softened, and for a moment, Malik felt as if she were studying him, as though trying to read the story behind his face. "You remind me of someone," she said suddenly, almost as if thinking aloud. Malik's curiosity was piqued. He tilted his head slightly. "Oh. Who?" he asked, though he had no idea what she meant. The woman smiled faintly, a touch of mystery in her expression. "Just, someone from a long time ago." "Maybe it's nothing," she added, shaking her head. Malik laughed softly, a nervous but friendly sound. "Well, I don't think I've met anyone famous before," he joked, trying to ease the tension. The woman's laughter followed, gentle and melodic, and for a moment, it felt like the chaos of the city had melted away. They continued talking briefly, sharing small details about themselves. Malik mentioned school, his love for music, and the neighborhood he lived in. The woman, in turn, spoke cautiously about her routines and her day-to-day life, carefully choosing her words as if revealing only a part of herself. Despite the brevity of their conversation, an unusual connection had begun to form, a mixture of trust, curiosity, and mutual respect. As Malik glanced at her once more, he couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't an ordinary encounter. There was something familiar about the way she carried herself, something in her eyes that tugged at a distant memory he couldn't quite place. He tried to dismiss it, telling himself it was just a feeling, but deep down, a small spark of curiosity had been lit. "Are you okay to continue on your own from here?" Malik asked gently, ready to step back and let her go. The woman nodded, her eyes briefly meeting his. "Yes, but thank you again." Truly, she said, and Malik could see the sincerity shining through. He gave her one last encouraging smile before stepping aside, feeling that strange sense of something extraordinary quietly unfolding before him. And in that ordinary, fleeting moment, neither of them realized that this simple interaction would soon lead to a revelation neither could have anticipated, a discovery that would turn a chance encounter into a memory they would never forget. Malik thought the moment had passed. He had helped the woman, exchanged a few kind words, and now she was slowly making her way down the sidewalk, maneuvering her wheelchair with more confidence. He smiled to himself, feeling proud, and was about to continue his walk home when he noticed something strange. The woman wasn't moving away as quickly as one might expect. Instead, she was lingering, her eyes fixed on him. Malik froze for a moment, slightly startled. It wasn't a stare of annoyance or judgment, it was something else, something subtle but unsettling, like recognition, though he couldn't understand why. She seemed to study him the way someone might look at a photograph long forgotten, trying to pull a memory from the back of her mind. Malik hesitated, unsure whether to approach or ignore it. He felt a strange pull, a curiosity he couldn't explain. "Is everything okay?" he called gently, not wanting to startle her. The woman's lips curved into a faint smile, but she didn't respond immediately. Instead, she continued to look at him, her gaze soft yet intense, like she was piecing together a puzzle. As he watched, Malik's mind began to wander. Had they met somewhere before? Was she someone he knew from his neighborhood, from school, or perhaps a distant relative? The possibilities swirled in his head, but none seemed to fit. The feeling of familiarity was strong, almost unnerving, and it made his heartbeat quicken. He took a careful step closer. The woman finally spoke, her voice quiet but deliberate. "You remind me of someone," she said slowly, her words carrying a weight that made Malik stop in his tracks. He blinked, trying to hide his curiosity, but the sudden intensity of her tone caught him off guard. "Someone from a long time ago," she added, hesitating for a moment, as if unsure whether she should continue. Malik's curiosity spiked. He leaned slightly closer, careful not to appear intrusive. "Really? Who?" he asked softly, genuinely intrigued. She shook her head gently, a small, mysterious smile playing on her lips. "Maybe it's nothing. I feel like I've seen you before," she replied, her voice trailing off. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. Around them, the city moved on, oblivious to the tension building on the sidewalk. Cars honked, people laughed and hurried past, but Malik felt as if time had slowed. There was something in the woman's gaze that demanded attention, something compelling that he couldn't ignore. He noticed tiny details he hadn't before, the faint scar on her hand, the way she held the wheels of her chair with careful precision, and the slight tilt of her head that suggested she was remembering something important. Malik's mind raced. Could it be a family member? Someone his parents had mentioned in passing? Or maybe a neighbor from years ago? He felt a strange combination of anticipation and nervousness. He wanted to ask more questions, but at the same time, he didn't want to pressure her. There was a delicate balance in the air, a fragile tension that made every second feel heavier. The woman's gaze softened suddenly, and she let out a small, almost imperceptible sigh. "I'm sorry. I don't mean to seem strange," she said, her voice almost apologetic. "It's just, there's something familiar about you. Something I can't quite place." Malik smiled reassuringly. "No need to apologize," he said. I'm curious now too. Maybe we'll figure it out." For a brief moment, they just looked at each other, two strangers connected by an invisible thread of memory and fate. Malik could feel the weight of the moment pressing gently but insistently against him, urging him to pay attention, to listen, to notice. The world around them was busy and loud, but for these two, there was a stillness, a pause in reality that made the ordinary extraordinary. The woman's eyes lingered on him for a few more seconds, and Malik felt a flicker of anticipation. Something told him that this was more than coincidence, that their paths crossing today had meaning. And deep down, a quiet sense of excitement mixed with nervousness began to rise. He had no idea how significant this encounter would become, or how much it would change both of their lives. Finally, she gave a small nod, almost as if acknowledging some unspoken connection, and slowly turned her wheelchair to continue down the sidewalk. Malik watched her go, feeling a strange mixture of curiosity and anticipation. He knew, even if he couldn't yet understand why, that this encounter wasn't over. There was more to be discovered, and something about her glance hinted at a story waiting to be revealed. As he resumed walking, Malik's thoughts kept returning to her. Who was she really? Why did her gaze feel so familiar? And what could this unexpected encounter mean? He didn't know it yet, but the suspense of that suspicious glance would soon lead to a revelation neither of them would ever forget. Malik couldn't shake the feeling from the woman's gaze. Even as she slowly maneuvered her wheelchair further down the sidewalk, her eyes kept flicking back toward him, as if trying to confirm something buried deep in memory. He hesitated for a moment, then decided to step closer. Something about this encounter didn't feel random. Something about her felt familiar, though he couldn't place it. "Excuse me," he called gently, his voice carrying just enough to get her attention without startling her. "I don't want to bother you, but, do you think we've met before?" The woman stopped and turned her wheelchair slightly, her hands resting lightly on the wheels as she studied him. Her lips pressed together for a moment, as if she were holding back thoughts, memories that were just out of reach. "Maybe," she said softly, her tone cautious but curious. I think there's something familiar about you, but I can't quite place it. It's like trying to remember a dream you had a long time ago." Malik's curiosity spiked, and he took another step closer, leaning in just enough to signal his genuine interest without being intrusive. "Can you tell me more?" "Maybe if you describe it, I can help," he encouraged, his voice calm but eager. She hesitated, then began speaking slowly, carefully, as if selecting her words like puzzle pieces. "It's hard to explain, but there's something in the way you carry yourself, your posture, your expression. It reminds me of someone I used to know. Someone kind, thoughtful, someone who once helped me in a way I'll never forget." Her gaze softened, and a flicker of emotion passed over her face, hinting at memories long hidden. Malik's heart began to race. Could it be? Was this woman connected to his life in a deeper way than he had ever imagined? He nodded encouragingly. "Go on. Maybe I can help you remember." She paused, then drew a slow breath. "Years ago, there was a family who helped me when I needed it most. They were strangers at first, just good people in the world who didn't ask for anything in return. One young boy in particular, he reminded me so much of hope, of generosity, of kindness without expectation. He had a smile that made even the hardest days feel lighter." Malik's stomach twisted. The way she spoke, the way she described kindness and hope, something clicked in his mind. Could she be talking about someone he had known indirectly? Someone who had shaped his family's life without him even realizing it? His curiosity became a burning need to know more. I'm not sure I understand," Malik admitted, his voice soft, but his eyes fixed on hers. "Are you saying I remind you of someone from your past?" She nodded, a small, almost shy gesture. "Yes. I can't be sure, but there's a connection. Something about you brings back memories I thought I had lost. It's strange, but it feels important." Malik felt a mixture of awe and anticipation. There was something about this woman's words, her hesitation, her intensity, that told him this wasn't a coincidence. This encounter, this simple act of helping someone across the street, was more significant than he had ever imagined. It was as if fate had guided him to this exact moment, and now the universe was quietly revealing its plan. He took another step closer, lowering his voice to match her quiet tone. Maybe we can figure it out together. Maybe if we talk, we can remember what it is." The woman's eyes softened, and she let out a faint, almost inaudible sigh, as though a weight had been lifted by his words. For a moment, they simply looked at each other. Words weren't necessary, the tension and curiosity between them spoke volumes. There was a growing sense that this meeting had purpose, that the memory she was grasping for was tied to a deeper story, one that neither of them could yet fully understand. Finally, she spoke again, her voice carrying a hint of emotion she was trying to control. "I feel like, you are part of a story I didn't know I was still living. That helping me today, it wasn't just coincidence. It feels like destiny." Malik swallowed hard, his mind racing. The ordinary act of kindness he had offered had suddenly become extraordinary. He had no idea what the next moments would reveal, but he sensed that this was only the beginning of something unforgettable. And in that quiet pause on the sidewalk, with the city moving around them, Malik realized that this encounter, strange, unexpected, and emotionally charged, was leading him to a truth neither of them could yet fully see. The reveal was beginning, and it promised to change everything. Malik felt his heart pound in his chest as the woman's words hung in the air. Something about her tone, her hesitance, and the way she looked at him made his pulse quicken. He had helped her out of simple kindness, thinking nothing of it, yet now every detail, the tilt of her head, the careful way she moved her wheelchair, the depth in her eyes, seemed to carry a weight he couldn't ignore. The woman paused for a moment, as if gathering courage to continue. I think I know who you are," she said softly, her voice trembling slightly. Malik blinked, startled. Who, he asked, trying to keep his voice steady, though a surge of curiosity mixed with nervousness ran through him. Her eyes filled with recognition, and for the first time, Malik noticed a subtle shine, tears she was trying not to show. You're the grandson of Mrs. Thompson," she said finally, her words slow, deliberate, and full of meaning. Malik froze. Mrs. Thompson was his grandmother, the kind-hearted woman who had always taught him to be compassionate, to help anyone in need, and to see the good in people even when the world seemed harsh. Malik's mind raced. "Grandmother's friend?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The woman nodded, letting out a shaky breath. "Yes. I used to live in this neighborhood many years ago. Your grandmother helped me when I was struggling, when life seemed impossible. She guided me, supported me, and made sure I had what I needed to survive. And now, seeing you today, it's like her kindness has returned in another form." Malik felt a lump in his throat. He had always heard stories about his grandmother's generosity, about the people she had helped quietly and without expectation. But to see it reflected in this moment, through the gratitude and recognition of someone she had truly impacted, was overwhelming. He realized that his small act of helping her across the street wasn't just an ordinary good deed, it was a continuation of a legacy of kindness. I didn't know," Malik said softly, his voice catching. I wanted to help. I didn't know who you were." The woman smiled, her lips quivering slightly. "And that's what makes this so special. You didn't help me because of who I am. You helped because it was the right thing to do. That's exactly what your grandmother taught you, isn't it?" Malik nodded, tears pricking his eyes. "Yes, she always said, help without expecting anything in return, and you'll change the world in ways you can't imagine." The woman's gaze softened, and she reached out her hand, resting it lightly on the wheelchair. "Well, today, you changed my world. You reminded me that there are still good people out there, people who care without hesitation. I can see her spirit in you, her kindness alive through your actions." The emotion in her words struck Malik deeply. He felt a strange, almost spiritual connection in that moment, as if the circle of life and kindness had closed itself around them. This wasn't just a meeting of two strangers, it was a bridge across time, a link between generations, a tangible reminder that one person's goodness could echo far beyond what they ever imagined. Malik's gaze softened as he looked at her. I'm glad I met you," he said, his voice low but sincere. "And I'm glad I could help, even if just a little." The woman's eyes glistened with unshed tears, and she smiled warmly. It's more than just a little, she said. It's everything. Today, you reminded me of hope, of kindness, and of the people who shaped my life. And for that, I will always be grateful. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other, two souls connected by empathy, gratitude, and shared history, even if neither had fully realized it until now. The city around them continued to bustle, but for Malik and the woman, time seemed to slow. The air felt heavy with meaning, yet light with the relief of recognition. Finally, Malik took a deep breath, feeling a wave of understanding and warmth. I think we were meant to meet today, he said quietly. The woman nodded, her eyes shining. Yes, sometimes life brings the right people together at the right time, even when we least expect it. In that moment, the ordinary act of helping a stranger had transformed into something extraordinary. Malik realized that kindness wasn't just about the immediate moment, it was about the ripple effects, the connections, and the unexpected ways one good deed could touch a life. Today, he had not only helped someone in need but had discovered a profound connection that bridged generations, creating a memory neither of them would ever forget. And as they sat there on the sidewalk, quietly reflecting on the coincidence and the emotional weight of the moment, Malik understood something he had always known in his heart, that true kindness always finds its way back, sometimes in the most unexpected and beautiful forms. Malik and the woman sat quietly on the edge of the sidewalk, the bustling city around them fading into the background. For a few moments, neither spoke. Words felt unnecessary. The weight of their connection, the recognition that had just unfolded, carried a power far beyond conversation. Yet slowly, as the initial shock and emotion began to settle, a gentle dialogue emerged, filled with reflection, curiosity, and shared humanity. It's strange, the woman began softly, her eyes tracing the lines of Malik's face as though she were seeing echoes of someone familiar. I never thought I would see someone from my past in such an ordinary moment. I didn't expect kindness to lead me back to memories I had almost forgotten. Malik nodded thoughtfully, feeling the truth in her words. I think sometimes the smallest actions have the biggest impact, he said. I just helped because it seemed like the right thing to do, but now I see how much it can mean, even to someone I've never met before. She smiled faintly, a mixture of nostalgia and relief. Your grandmother always believed in that. She once told me that even when life feels heavy, a single act of care can remind people that the world isn't entirely cruel. I see that same spirit in you. Malik felt a lump in his throat. Hearing someone recognize that reflection of his grandmother in him made him realize how much he carried forward from her teachings, often without even noticing. They began talking about life, about struggles and small victories, about moments that often go unseen but shape a person in ways that matter. The woman shared stories from her past, how her life had been difficult, how she had faced challenges others couldn't imagine, and how the people who had once helped her had left an indelible mark on her heart. Malik listened intently, absorbing every word, every emotion. He felt honored that she trusted him with this part of her life, and he realized that these stories weren't just about hardship, they were about resilience, courage, and the profound impact of kindness. As Malik shared small details about his own life, the conversation became more personal. He told her about his school, his friends, and the lessons his grandmother had instilled in him about empathy and helping others. The woman listened with keen interest, occasionally nodding and smiling. You've inherited her heart, she said quietly. She would be proud of the person you are becoming. And maybe, today, in helping me, you've reminded me of her too. There was a quiet pause as they both reflected on the unexpected depth of the moment. Around them, the city continued its steady rhythm, but for Malik and the woman, it was as if time had slowed, allowing them to inhabit a space that existed solely for connection, understanding, and recognition. They spoke less about the outside world and more about the intangible, the way kindness can ripple, the way small gestures can echo across time, and the way a single encounter can transform ordinary moments into something extraordinary. Malik couldn't help but feel a growing sense of responsibility and awareness. He realized that every act of help, no matter how small, carried weight. Today, it had led him to someone whose life intersected with his own family's history in a deeply meaningful way. And he understood that this wasn't coincidence. There was a lesson here: the impact of one's actions can be far-reaching, touching lives in ways one may never anticipate. The woman's gaze softened, and she reached out slightly, as if to emphasize the sincerity of her words. "I want you to know, this meeting today isn't just about help. It's about connection. It's about remembering the good in people and passing it forward. You've reminded me that the world still has people like your grandmother, and now, people like you." Malik smiled quietly, feeling a warmth he hadn't expected. I understand now. Helping isn't just about the immediate moment, it's about what comes after, the ripple, the memory, the inspiration it leaves behind." For a few moments, they simply sat, sharing that quiet understanding, letting the city hum around them while the invisible thread of connection grew stronger. Malik felt a sense of fulfillment he had never experienced before: pride, yes, but also humility. He realized that even in ordinary life, extraordinary moments could occur when people acted with empathy, courage, and compassion. Finally, the woman smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile. "Thank you, Malik," she said softly. "Not just for helping me, but for being someone who carries forward the lessons of those who cared before. Today, you reminded me of hope and goodness in the world. I won't forget it." Malik returned the smile, his own heart full. "I won't forget it either," he said. "I've learned more today than I ever expected." As they parted ways, Malik felt a quiet but powerful sense of purpose. He knew that this encounter, small and simple at first glance, had become a life-changing moment for both of them. The connection they had formed would linger in their hearts, a reminder that kindness, empathy, and understanding have the power to transcend ordinary life and touch the soul in ways nothing else can. Malik walked away slowly, his mind buzzing with the events of the afternoon. The city around him was alive with the usual hum of traffic, the chatter of pedestrians, and the distant wail of a siren, yet he felt as though he were moving through a different world entirely, a world where small actions carried enormous weight, where moments of kindness could ripple through time, and where the connections we make often exceed our understanding. He replayed the encounter over and over in his mind, the woman struggling with her wheelchair, the hesitant glance that had turned into recognition, and finally, the emotional revelation that linked her to his grandmother's past. What had started as a simple act of helping a stranger had transformed into something far deeper, a connection between generations, a meeting of hearts that neither had expected, and a reminder of the power of empathy. Malik realized, as he continued down the street, that kindness was far more than just a good deed. It was a force that could break through barriers, heal old wounds, and create bonds that defied time and circumstance. That afternoon, he had learned that helping someone in need was not only about the immediate relief it provided, it was about the ripple effects that followed, the unseen impact, and the lives quietly touched in ways we may never fully know. The woman's words echoed in his mind: helping isn't just about the immediate moment, it's about what comes after, the ripple, the memory, the inspiration it leaves behind. Malik understood now that his grandmother had lived by this principle her entire life, leaving a legacy that extended far beyond her own actions. And today, in helping her friend, he had unwittingly become a part of that legacy. As he walked past the familiar storefronts and tree-lined sidewalks of his neighborhood, Malik felt a renewed sense of purpose. He knew that every small act of kindness mattered, that even gestures that seemed insignificant could carry profound meaning. He thought about how he would approach the rest of his life differently, not with grandiose intentions, but with consistent, small choices that reflected empathy, compassion, and awareness of the people around him. Malik also reflected on the unpredictability of life. Sometimes, the moments that seem ordinary or routine are the ones that hold the greatest significance. A single decision, to stop, to help, to speak, to listen, can alter the course of someone else's day, week, or even life. He understood that life was full of such hidden opportunities, and that recognizing them required presence, attentiveness, and a willingness to act without expecting anything in return. He smiled to himself, thinking about the woman in the wheelchair and the emotional exchange they had shared. It struck him how powerful human connection could be, how two lives could intersect for a single moment, yet leave lasting impressions on both. Malik felt grateful, for the chance to help, for the lessons he had learned, and for the realization that ordinary moments often hold extraordinary potential. By the time he reached his home, the sun was beginning to set, casting a warm golden glow over the neighborhood. Malik paused for a moment, looking up at the sky, and thought about the lesson he had learned that day. Life was unpredictable, yes, but it was also filled with opportunities to make a difference. Acts of kindness were the bridges we built, connecting strangers, families, and even generations in ways that words alone could never achieve. Malik walked through the front door with a quiet determination. He knew that helping someone today had not only changed her world but had also changed him. He understood now that true kindness was about selflessness, about seeing beyond yourself and noticing the needs of others. It was about empathy, courage, and compassion, and the willingness to act even when there was no recognition or reward. As he reflected on the events of the day, Malik realized that the world was filled with countless opportunities to be kind, countless chances to create ripples of change. And perhaps, he thought with a small, hopeful smile, that was the true legacy of humanity, that every act of goodness, no matter how small, had the power to touch lives, inspire hearts, and leave an imprint that could last far longer than we could ever imagine. That afternoon, Malik had learned a lesson that would stay with him forever. The simplest acts of kindness, offered without expectation, have the power to transform lives, not just for the ones we help, but for ourselves as well. And in that knowledge, he felt a quiet, deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that even ordinary moments could become extraordinary when guided by empathy, care, and a genuine desire to make the world a little better.